What's up, everyone? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tsla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down some big news that came out for the markets that's causing some high volatility, what's happening with earnings that just came out, what you should be watching for as time progresses. Let me just mention that I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. So what happened to the markets? We had Jerome Powell giving a speech yesterday, and he was being more dovish, which helped the markets, not to mention Meta's earnings. That's why for the first 20 minutes, the market was actually pumping and holding up. And then we got some big data and big news that came out that caused the market to get a rug pull. So what is that news and data? Let's talk about that first before I break down the charts. So the market's looking very weak right now, especially because of what just came out. What first happened was at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we had this news. The manufacturing numbers are not looking too good. PMI was below expectations. The sector is slowing down as a whole, and manufacturing prices are still going up despite new orders slowing down. So that was not the best of news, at least for the markets. That's what started this sell-off. Then we had some major news that came out in the Middle East. Once again, guys, I'm not going to go over all the specific details, but I just want to say that the situation is very tense. I'm hoping that this whole situation does not escalate from here. I'm really hoping that that ends up not being the case, but right now there are some risks of more and more violence. So I just wanted to call that out. It's not what I'm hoping for. I don't want that to happen whatsoever. I'm hoping for peace, but to see what's going on, the situation is once again very tense, very, very important. And that's part of why the market got this very negative reaction, especially because this involves many different countries from Russia to China to the United States. So that's why the market saw this like rug pull for the day. We did get bullish catalyst yesterday, but all this news came out that ended up stopping it. Let me just note something that when it comes to the way the market moves, I can't predict every single move. I'm not really a genie or a fortune teller. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I can't create things or do anything like that. What I can tell you is this. We were looking pretty good yesterday because of Jerome Powell and Meta. The market was holding up in the very beginning of the day, but then all this new pieces of news ended up coming out that caused this big rug pull. So once again, I can't always predict that. That's why I want to kind of like account for both possibilities, but then tell you guys what's looking more probable just by looking at the charts. Just as a reminder, tomorrow is going to be Friday, the first Friday of August, and just note that we have over 280,000 of these calls expiring and over 560,000 of these puts expiring. That's going to give us a max pain of 548, and 2.35 is the puts to call ratio. So something else that's very important. There's a lot more puts expiring, so we'll just have to see what kind of move we get from here. I also want to call out that for earnings, we have another big catalyst. We have Amazon, Apple, Intel, and Coinbase all announcing their earnings. I'm going to go over just three of them. Aapl is actually up just a little bit. It's only up about 0.7% as of right now. So it's a very, very tiny move to the upside. Sales are up about 5%, topping estimates as iPad and services revenues have jumped. But it's not really much of a move. It's not really enough to really wow these investors. They're very, very meticulous and very, very tricky sometimes. So you want to be careful. EPS, revenue, iPhone revenue, Mac revenue, iPad revenue, they're all beats. They beat on EPS with $1.40 above expectations. Revenue is a beat at over $85 billion, and everything else were beats thus far. Even their gross margins are at 46.3%, which is pretty good in my personal opinion. On top of this, they were telling us about their net income, which is once again above expectations. So that's pretty good. And it's very important to remember that the iPhone business is continuing to hold strong and other sectors are still holding up. So pretty good earnings thus far. They're showing some strong growth in the iPad division, and their sales are expected to be decent, at least overall. So this is pretty good for them. That's why the share price is still just slightly in the green. Not really a crazy big move, but it's still, once again, trying to hold up. But then we have something else that's important, okay? Apple is only up 0.6%, but Amazon is making a massive move. It's currently down 8%, and that's very negative for the stock market. So what's going on with Amazon? Unfortunately, we got some misses and not very good forecasts. So earnings was at $1.26. That's above expectations for EPS. But revenue is at 147.98 billion, below expectations of 148.5 billion. Amazon Web Services were at 26.3 billion. That's above expectations, but advertising revenue was below expectations. So the overall revenue and advertising revenue specifically were below expectations. That's a little bit more bearish. And then this news came out right here. Amazon's forecast in revenue for the current quarter, that's Q3, is said to be between $154 to $158.5 billion. That's representing a growth of 8 to 11% year over year. The midpoint is at 156.25 billion, below what analysts are expecting at 158 billion. So weak guidance, some misses in earnings and weak guidance for Amazon. That is why the share price is tanking. It's down almost 8%, and that's very negative for the stock market. Intel is also down about 19%. They're going to be cutting about 15% of their workforce, and they missed on guidance as well. Earnings per share were below expectations, revenue below expectations, revenue declined, weak guidance, them cutting their workforce, not bullish, bearish news, excuse me, guys. Bearish news for Intel, not the best of news for at least for us moving forward. So just want to call it out for Intel, not looking too good. The question is what's going to happen for the markets. So honestly, guys, there's a lot of news coming out involving the Middle East, and it's not very good news whatsoever. The market is getting a very negative reaction thus far. SPY has to try to reclaim 542.5 to turn back up. If we do that tomorrow, we could be going back up to 544. If we fail to do that, we're going to favor downside. We're barely at 540 right now. If this fails us, I think we're easily going down to about 538. If that fails us, I think we're going to be heading for 536. That's going to be our next potential target if that ends up failing. So we are looking more bearish. If I'm going to be frank with everyone, this kind of resembles a kind of like a head and shoulders, maybe not a perfect one, but this looks pretty bearish right now. And we are looking like we're going to be seeing a dip right here, especially off this break of structure. So it's favoring downside, at least from a technical standpoint. Watch for confirmation if we end up losing support. Why are we looking more bearish? Because we got a weak report coming out for manufacturing, and also Amazon missed on earnings. Aapl did okay with earnings. They're actually up just a teeny bit. They're only up like 0.6%, but because Amazon is up 8%, that's going to trump everything. So that's something else that's worth noting. One more thing is that tomorrow before the market opens, we have the labor force participation rate, non-farm payrolls, and the unemployment numbers. We'll see what this leads to. Will this be enough to really help the markets? We'll just have to wait and see. It depends on the data, of course. So if SPY does manage to reclaim 542.5, we could turn back up. If not, we turn bearish. And the chart from a technical standpoint right now, based off technicals, it looks more bearish. It looks like it's going to be dipping down to about the 530s. 538 and 536 look like potential targets for SPY, in my opinion. For ES was trying to make a nice breakout, so you would have been targeting this high right here. I think that this was a trap, only for us to get a big rug pull. So to turn back up, you want to see this thing try to reclaim at least 5,500. If that gets reclaimed, this could try to rebound. If not, if we continue to lose support, which is currently at about this 54.45 area, so like right here. If that fails us, we could be dipping all the way down to this imbalance, taking us down to about the 53.80 area. If that breaks, we'll be coming all the way down to about 53.50. So we are favoring downside on ES. We have a head and shoulders bearish structure. This is favoring downside, so be very, very mindful of this. Be very careful. Just for confirmation, we'll see what happens with the unemployment numbers, if we get a bounce or not. But from a technical standpoint, we are favoring the downside. I'm being very unbiased when I say that. Unfortunately, SPX did the same thing. So SPX had this gap below. We had two gaps. Basically, we filled the gap below. It's trying to rebound a little bit during the after hours, but it hasn't really done much. So we'll see if we get a rejection or not on SPX. If we end up losing support here, we still haven't filled this gap. The gap still hasn't been filled towards about 53.77. So it is possible we rebound a bit and start dipping. Still looks kind of weak in terms of the structure, making lower highs and lower lows. So I see a risk of downside. If the gap support does not hold, we'll be dipping all the way down towards 53.25. And we have to be very, very careful. There is that risk of downside. For Tsla, unfortunately, we're barely holding our 200 EMA, this 215 area. If we get good news from unemployment numbers and we try to bounce, I'll be looking for 219 and 222 as resistance levels. If we lose 215, okay, if the bad news perpetuates and Tesla struggles to hold up because of what's happening with geopolitics, what's happening around the world, what's going on with the numbers from yesterday, and also because of Amazon's earnings, if all of that drags Tesla down, and we lose 215, watch that for confirmation, because Tesla could be dipping all the way down to this imbalance at 206. 206 could be coming for Tesla if we get that rug pull. So you want to be careful and watch 215 if we hold that or not. Right now, Tesla's favoring downside, but just to be safe, I'm going to wait and see. But just know that there is that risk of downside. For Nvda tried to bounce only to reject. So the move we were talking about, the bounce, did come only for this to reject, to see like a very, very big rejection. So if we turn bullish, you want to break past 108. If that breaks, watch 110 and 112. If you lose support where we currently are around 107, I think we're easily going to be falling towards the 103.5 area. So we have a double top like structure that's formed right here. This is a double top. This is favoring the downside. So the odds favor downside, in my personal opinion, all the way down to 103.5. That's looking more bearish to me. So watch out for Nvda. It's favoring a move back down to the low 100s. Now, could we get a surprise tomorrow with the unemployment numbers? It's possible, but I'm just talking about technicals. We're about to get a bearish cross in the PPO, and we're seeing high volume selling. This is technically speaking favoring the downside. So I just want to give you guys a warning about that. That's looking more favorable. For NQ, this is also rejecting, got this big rejection. We failed to break past our 200 EMA. So this is still favoring the downside. We've been downtrending for quite some time. We tried to bounce, trying to approach this 20,000 area, but we came short, rejecting off our 200 EMA. So to turn bullish, you want to see it get above at least 19,400. We're pretty far from that. If we fail to do so, we're going to favor downside. This is favoring downside. We're barely at support around just under 19,000. I think that if we fail to reclaim that, we're coming all the way down to 18,500. We look bearish on NQ, and this is dragging down the triple Q. The triple Q lost almost all of its gains from yesterday, if not pretty much all of them if you account for the after hours right now. It's dumping even more in the after hours because of Amazon's earnings. We have a head and shoulders like structure. We have resistance at 460. We have support currently over here around this 454 area. If 454 breaks on the triple Q, if this 454 area breaks, I think we could be coming all the way down to 450 flat. If that fails us, we're coming all the way down to 444. So you want to be careful. The triple Q has a risk of more downside, looks more bearish to me. So I favor the downside in my opinion. For Aapl, here's the thing. If Aapl made a big move to the upside, this could have helped the markets, but we're struggling to do that. We have resistance at 220. We're barely at 219.4. We're only up 0.4% now. It's not doing a good job. It's not really countering Amazon's break. So this is looking not the best. Now, it is possible we retest 220 tomorrow, if not 222. But like I said before, we're coming just a little bit short. So we'll just have to see how things go. Anyways, with that being said, I just want to say that I'm a little bit apprehensive about Aapl. There's a risk of some downsides, so just be careful. And I would have loved to see a much bigger move to the upside, but we're coming short, so it's not really enough to help the markets. So please be careful with Aapl. For Palantir, we're at 25.69. If we lose this support, we'll be dipping all the way down towards this previous resistance right here around 24.6, I think would be our targets, if not the imbalance below. If we balance, we'll be looking for a move. If we break past 26, look for 26.8. This chart is looking bearish. If you just look at this, it looks straight up bearish. We're barely holding our 200 EMA. If this breaks, that's confirmation to the downside. We're going to be going down to the 24s if that fails. For Supermicro, we tried to bounce. I said if we broke 730, look for 750, but we failed to get all the way up there. We got a big rejection after the bearish news that came out. And we're barely at 660. So if we bounce off this, look for 680 as resistance. If we fail to hold 660, we'll be dipping all the way down towards the support over here. We'll be dipping all the way down towards the 625 area as we look more bearish on the 4-hour time frame. For Rivian looks more bearish as well. You want to see this try to get back above 15.8 to turn back up, but there's no sign of that. It's actually just collapsing. So we'll see 15. If we can hold 15, there's some potential, some hope for it. If we don't hold 15, we're going all the way down to 14.36. Okay, so this looks more bearish. It's favoring downside. So far, it's looking a little bit more bearish. It's barely holding the 200 EMA. If we rebound, I want to see it break past 7.25. If that breaks, you'll be looking for 7.32. And if we lose 7.08, we're going to be dipping all the way down towards, well, we have 6.95 as an area it bounced off of previously, but it's not that strong support. We still have this gap down here. I think that's going to be our target for 6.7 if that fails. This looks more bearish. Plain and simple. We have a double top. It's struggling to hold up, so it's not looking too good. It favors downside. On the IWM, we have a bearish divergence that's developing right over here. Watch 216. If that fails, we're going down to 213. If we hold this, we could try to rebound for 220, but this is favoring the downside. It's favoring downside. It looks like it's going to go down to about 213, so just be careful. We'll see if 216 holds. However, I know that the Russell is, it had some strength during a lot of times in July while the market was slowing down. So we'll see how well it holds around 216. We'll see if it holds or not. If we lose that, I'll be looking for that gap fill for 213, if not lower. We're down 3% for the day, which is pretty crazy. So be careful, guys. I want to give you guys another heads up. Excuse me. AMD, if we bounce off where we currently are, this 130 area, we have to try to break past 132.5. If that breaks, we have resistance around 135. If we continue to fall, watch for 130. If that fails us, we'll be looking for 127.5. The 4-hour on AMD is looking more bearish, so I favor the downside, in my personal opinion. For ARM, we're looking a little bit more bearish as well. We have a nice looking bearish structure. Look at resistance currently around this 120 area. If you reject, you'll be dipping all the way down towards basically this 115 area right here, this imbalance, and then eventually 112. ARM is looking bearish, especially after earnings. So unfortunately, there's more downside risk. Coinbase is flat right now. You would have wanted to see it, a 5% move to the upside. We're only up 2%, so it's not really much. We'll see if we can try to get back above 220 or not. We might test that tomorrow, so there's some potential in it, but the trend is still bearish. So I might get a small rebound and then continue lower. Watch and see. Amazon is collapsing. We're barely holding 170, guys. Not looking too good. We'll see if this could hold. We're down almost 8%. Watch 174, very close to 174 is key resistance. If we don't reclaim that, this may continue to dip all the way down to about 168 and 165. And if 165 breaks, 162 is going to be our next support. Looks more bearish to me. It looks like it might be dipping to the mid 160s. Not looking good after that earnings report. Meta is flat right now. Watch 500 is resistance. If we break that, we're going back up towards 506. If we fail to break and hold above 500, we're going to be looking for a dip to 488. So just be careful, guys. That's something else I wanted to note. For Microsoft, we have a little bit more downside that's approaching right over here. We have resistance all the way down here towards 421. And we have support all the way down here where this imbalance is at 410. This is favoring 410. So I think that's looking more favorable in my personal opinion. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. For Google's failing to reclaim the 50 EMA at 175. We have resistance around 172, and we have our support all the way down here at 168. We might be dipping all the way down towards 168. So we'll see how things go. We still look more bearish, in my opinion. For GameStop, it looks bearish. It looks like it's going to be dipping to 20. AMC is also looking like it's rejecting. It might be dipping for 5 flat. If that fails, let's look for 4.92. Still looks kind of weak. DJT lost 28. That's not a good sign. It's favoring a move to the downside now. I think it's going to be dipping down towards 25. If we reclaim 28, we could try to turn, but like I said before, looking more bearish in my opinion. What's interesting is the 10-year treasury yield, or not the treasury yield, the VIX is trying to bounce. It's up 13%. If it breaks past resistance at this 19 zone, we could be going back to the high towards 21. The VIX is still bullish. It's still holding up. It's making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. It had a fake dip only to bounce. So this is still looking bullish as the market still looks bearish. Two more things. The 10-year is still dipping as Jerome Powell was being more dovish, but not really enough to help the markets amidst all the other factors. And the dollar got a small bounce, but it wasn't really anything too significant. So it's not really affecting the market at least as much. So with that being said, I just want to make it very clear that right now there's a big shift in the markets. We're seeing a big change in structure, and things are continuing to shift in a very, very interesting manner. So you want to be very careful with the way things are looking. So that being said, guys, I just want to thank you all so much for listening. Right now, the market is looking bearish. We're just barely holding the supports we're at, and there is risk of a bigger move to the downside. As I said before, I'm not really a fortune teller. I don't always know exactly what will happen, and I admit that I can be wrong. Right? It's happened before. It's happened many times. Nobody can predict everything that's going to happen in the future. I don't have access to insider information that other people have. I don't know everything. I'll just tell you this. Always be prepared for anything when it comes to day trading, and just know that as far as the market goes, unexpected things can happen, such as what happened in the Middle East. And also because of the very important numbers. So for tomorrow, we'll be looking for the unemployment numbers, and we'll have to see how things look. I'll give you guys reports tomorrow before the market opens. With that being said, I want to thank you all so much for listening. I hope you guys have an absolutely spectacular rest of the day. I'll see you guys very soon on the next video in just about a little bit over 12 hours from now. So I'll be giving you guys another update before the market opens. Until then, have a great evening / day / night, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. Don't forget to smash the like button. Thank you all so much for listening, and peace out.